1966.
Coltrane.
Tell me about that.
I didn't know who it was when I walked in at all, and was at the jazz workshop in San Francisco in North Beach. And I mean, really, what I remember about it is like feeling like I was pinned against the wall in a good way. I mean, it was a brick wall. And, I did, have talked to some people about that time. But I mean, I didn't know about jazz really. I mean, not, certainly not Coltrane, because at that point, he was out. He was playing avant-garde out. And that's where I really started with jazz, is out. And I still love out, jazz. I really didn't know about traditional jazz till I got here. I collected records, 45s, 78s, albums, but everything was post-war, World War II. So there was nothing, no traditional jazz at all. Blues, early blues and things like that. As far as modern jazz is concerned, I think a lot more people would like it if they got to hear it. Because people have said to me, "Oh, that's jazz?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, I like that," who didn't think they liked jazz.
So, what was your headspace in 1966?
So I was in like Motown and soul and that, mostly that, and dancing and going to clubs.
Interpretive music, something you can hear the words and understand the melody.
Yeah. Add words.
Oh, okay. Add words.
Even, I mean, my parents had, they used to have parties in the basement, and they had like Benny Goodman and like that, the Dorsey brothers and all.
Yeah.
So, heard that sitting on the steps. I grew up in New Jersey, so had great radio from New York City. And that, it makes it very different than people that grew up on the West Coast, I found, because we got a lot of New Orleans music. I heard Lee Dorsey and Fats Domino and Cato and all those people while I was in New Jersey when it was happening here. Jocko's Rocket Ship, that TV show. They had a rocket,
right.
and it was a black American Bandstand, and I've watched American Bandstand. The kids would dance apart, where white people danced together until like the twist. So that was very influential to me too. I love Jocko's Rocket Ship and Alan Freed show.
When did you start putting a pen to this experience?
Not until I moved here.
Okay.
Not until, I mean, my first column, real column, I wrote a little. This, helped out, but 1985. But I knew so much when I got here, because I collected records in Oregon, in a log cabin in Oregon. We had 10,000 45s.
So you were that person.
Hundreds of 78s, thousands of albums, a lot of gospel. I knew who Professor Longhair was. I knew Big Chief Jolly was, and the Nevilles before I ever got here. And people go, "You've been up there all this time. How do you know this?" And
well, that's my question to you. Is like, how did that come to you?
There was no radio where I lived in Wolf Creek, Oregon. 2 television stations. I mean, it wasn't any of that. It was my interest from start, from New Jersey, and then jazz, and actually I met my then husband, his record collection before I met him, and it was small.
Okay.
But I said, "Okay, who is this?"
Yeah.
But we couldn't go 20 miles without stopping at a thrift store or yard sale, or I mean, most of the collection was done that way.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you get to New Orleans?
I came down for Mardi Gras. I had a good friend here, and she lived next to me in California before I moved to Oregon. I moved to Oregon. She moved to New Orleans. And so things were going da-da in Oregon. So I said, well, let me go visit Suzanne. And I didn't have a phone we corresponded by letter all those years. I didn't have a phone. So anyway, and then once I got here, oh, she lived at 609 Napoleon, right down the street from Tips. And I mean, that was
I'm getting thirsty.
so outrageous, for a music lover,
Right.
I mean, Fest was still playing, the Nevilles were there. They called our house the Annex. So
Yeah.
anyhow, so everybody said, oh, you're so far into the music, I was there for Mardi Gras, you got to stay for Jazz Fest. So I went to Belize in between Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest. Went there for many, many years and came back for Jazz Fest. And I've missed 2 days since 1978.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even live here till 81. So it's like I had to quit jobs and stuff.
When you become the culture, it's because you land here and never the spaceship just goes off without you.
Well, I'm going like, what? Why am I listening to all this recording when I can see all these people? And, the real icons, Earl King and Lee Dorsey and Johnny Adams, we're all at the festival. Clifton Chenier I saw before I came down here. I'm into Zydeco. I'm into a lot of different music, but yeah, so it was like I get to hear these people live, and then living next door to Patina's, it was, wild. It was really wild.
I'm hearing that you're into the music as you could have been a musician in so many
I
words.
like good music too much.
Okay. Okay. Becoming okay.
Really.
That's an insider joke,
I
right?
tried, but I was like, no, man, I'd rather listen to Train, and Sonny Rollins and stuff. What my goal in writing is to tell people to go hear it, man. I mean, I want it to enthuse people. And, because I really feel like modern jazz is like, it's always inside, and always, composed audience, and everybody. And, so I feel like it needs to be more opened up to, so more people go, oh, I like that.
Okay. So break down the barriers of interpretation.
Yeah. And also through Jazz Fest, I, got to hear so many legends, to hear Sonny Rollins, to hear, there was just so many legends all the time. It was just an amazing thing. Plus, after I was writing for a while, I started writing for Jazz Times and got to travel and got to, meet Dizzy Gillespie and hear Miles many times. And, that was just an amazing thing. You want me to tell you my
Please.
Dizzy Gillespie story?
Please. Well, let me ask you, what is your Dizzy?
Well, he was doing a video. It's called Sass and Brass.
Okay.
At what ended up to be Jimmy Buffett's place, the place on the corner place. And I was standing next to him. And of course, I knew who he was. And I didn't want to say anything stupid. So I looked down. I said, man, those are some beautiful boots. And I said, what kind of leather is that? And he has this expression on his face. You might have seen him if you've ever seen a video of him. And he just went like this, and he went, gorilla. Oh my God, I almost collapsed.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Right.
And then I saw him again in Umbria. I got to go to the Umbria Jazz Festival like 3 times. And we all ate in the same Rosetta, the cafe patio. So once again, I wanted to say something. So I said,
Where'd you get
he
those
was
boots?
sitting with his whole band, right?
Okay.
And so I said, you know, we've met before. And they did one of his double takes, and he said, I know it in my dreams. And so the whole table goes like,
But he didn't remember.
oh, well, I don't know if he
He
did or
did or
not.
not, but
That wasn't the
yeah,
point. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah. Very,
I know in my dreams.
yeah.
Because he had a punchline
Hmm.
for everything, like Danny Barker,
Right.
always with something funny to say.
Did you write for the artistic point of view, or it was writing for you commercial first?
I had a passion. As I said, I write. I mean, everybody. I worked at Gambit as a typesetter when I first went there. That was my first column, my first writing job, and but they already knew me because I had been with a nonprofit foundation that brought in jazz musicians, so, and we would bring our artwork over there anyway. But you know, I mean, they finally, you know, realized that, you know, that's how I got the job, is through my passion. And that's what I want to communicate with people, you know. But no, my whole purpose is like, come out and hear this. You're going to love it, really. You will. You might not think you will, but,
Okay.
you know, I think so.
So you're writing your articles are an invitation to come listen to the music.
Yes. This one column I did for Offbeat was called Kicking It Live. You know, and we'd talk about who's coming and where they're going to play next and like that kind of thing, yeah. Or when a good album comes out, everybody knows that I like it. Okay. Really like it, you know, like brilliant. I put brilliant or something, a word I wouldn't necessarily use. Well, nobody else is really writing much about modern jazz in New Orleans. But I mean, there's great music in New Orleans. It really is. I mean, last night I went to the Bayou Bar.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Nicholas Payton was on piano, playing great, and Jameson Ross was on drums, and Ricardo Pascal, and then a Peter Harris gig. Man, it was just so exciting. It was just so exciting, and it was a room full of people that I don't think necessarily knew what it was going to be and so forth. There's some regulars, but you know, it's in a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, people would talk, but not like talk over the music. You know, they talked socially a little. They really loved it. People loved it, you know. It was like, yeah, I wonder how many people in this room really, you know, go out and hear jazz, you know, or would buy a jazz album or, you know, check it out.
So why do you think that is?
Because it's so good. That's what
No, I mean that people don't listen. I think
they
you said
just, well, it, you know, it was good there because it's a friendly place. It's,
Mhm.
you know, the music is great. You know, that's not what they're getting fed, you know, from radio and television. You know, I mean, that's not what they're getting fed at all. Mm-hmm. Not to say all that music is bad or what, but they're not even like, you know, the Grammys, they're not going to show the jazz awards. Once in a while they would have like a jazz person perform, but it's all the commercial stuff. I did this thing called Count Basin for for Gambit, when just started before I even had my column. And I would, you know, rate. I wrote about every single act before the computer, so I had to look things up.
Mhm.
But anyway, so whenever that started, must have been '84 or something. But my motto has always been, "When in doubt, go to the gospel tent," because it always swings. And you know, I still run back. Luckily, they're really close, so I run back and forth a lot. But that's I mean, that's where the music came from and expanded, and the call and response, and man, they've got some great. Oh, so many of the great musicians nowadays came up in the church. You know, the ones from here, just PJ Morton just put out a book, and so many others. But on just a regular basis, the bands is just so good, and I love the connection of, you know, and some of them even have like country flair to them. It's all, as I said, it's
Hmm.
all one, and then you've got the Indians, which I've been following the Indians for well, I knew Jolly before I got here.
Hmm.
Chief Jolly, the Wild Child
Right.
Patulus, and he and I used to dance in front of the Neville brothers at Tipitina's.
That was you. Okay.
But I definitely followed the Indians. Used to go to practices. I don't go that much, but have always followed the Indians. That's my Mardi Gras for me.
Do you feel like New Orleans is now
Yeah.
becoming a city of outsiders as opposed to the insiders?
Certainly, when the neighborhoods change, like Treme, people say, I miss the children. I miss smelling food when I walk by the houses. It's all the part of the culture, and I mean the brass bands are still holding their own in this neighborhood. With Tuba Fat Square being there, and Backstreet Culture Museum, who I've sent out the route sheets for the second lines for 20 years. And so, I still second line, but I used to go to every second line for 4 hours, every Sunday, I would be there. Sylvester, the founder of the Backstreet Culture Museum, his rule was, well, his advice was better to be 2 hours early than 2 hours late to a second line. So be all the way up the
Right.
street and gone.
Okay.
I have to quote Sylvester somewhere in here because he was just an amazing man for what he put together from his the way he conceived the whole thing. He just started with photos and so forth, but the way he conceived and the way he set it up and little things that he would do, like he would have people, visitors to the museum, hold some of the beads in their hand so they could actually feel and see them. It wasn't just like, and here it is. Just those little things. And oh yeah, and he had like an ice spot, a cooler, ice cooler, that still had the sign dollar beer on it, But he, respected that guy as much as he respected everybody that was a participant. But it was like, you know, not your normal
Right.
part of a Mardi Gras Indian exhibit.
Do some snapshots of time and places in your New Orleans.
Well, Tootie, Montana.
Okay.
He lived, nearby, and North Robertson Street. That whole street jammed. It just jammed. There was like so many clubs right in a row. I mean, I've been hanging out here I haven't lived further from the Treme in over 30 years. I just can't.
Yeah,
Joe's Cozy Corner.
Okay.
When Karma would play there, Little People's, when Danny Barker brought me to Little People's, it was Kermit's birthday. I don't know which birthday, but it must have been because they stopped the music there, the new neighbors. Danny Barker used to come over here. He would have his gig at the Palm Court, and I like traditional jazz. I do. Not like, and
She really does.
well, everybody knows that I do.
Yeah.
He would always he'd get food to go for his wife, Lulu Barker, who was infirmed. He said, I got to bring home food for the infirmed. And he drove me over there, and then he would go check up on all the young musicians, like James Andrews, and so just to go and chat with them, see how things were going. I mean, those are really special times.
Mhm. Keep
And
going. Snapshots.
yeah,
This is not that
Smokey Johnson and Kid Jordan standing on the corner by Joe's Cozy Corner talking, you know. They were still hanging in the neighborhood.
Kid Jordan. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the great musicians in
Yeah.
the world. And Snug Harbor has also been a huge part of my life. Was the Faubourg beforehand, and then this Xenia Foundation, the nonprofit organization I worked for, we put on shows there. So I mean, we brought down some great musicians. If I don't go once a week, it's odd, you know. So I'm there a lot.
Is that how Snug's got his little label as being the premier modern jazz club?
Well, I don't know. I got it because it is. I guess.
Oh,
I
there
don't
you
think
go.
I ever wrote that,
Okay.
but it, and you know, it really is. Very different, but you know, just a wonderful place. And you know, people, just some friends went to Birdland, I guess, in New York, and they were used to going to like Snug and things like that, and that it was like for them, you know, because at Snug, people come, well, at both places, people come off the stage and chat with people and say goodnight, and then people want to talk and say thank you, and that's how. But at Birdland, apparently, it's like boom, you know. So that was sort of. I mean, they should have probably known that. You know, they clear the house. Here, you know, people go out, but they, you know, the musicians are a part of the music and a part of their culture and a part of their world for that period of time.
How would you describe New Orleans?
A place of music and soul, spirit, ancestry. Yeah, it still has those things. The people have, and the people, because I mean, this friend of mine came one time and she went to the corner store, and she came back and she was like a little upset, and you know, she said, "Well, I think they thought I was like a whore or something. I don't know if that's the word she used, or you know, because they kept calling me baby and stuff." You know, I mean, and that we say good morning and good evening, good night to, yeah, just walking down the street.
Yeah, right.
Just walking down the street.
Right. Or good evening, everybody. Yeah.
Jerome Smith had
Jerome, yeah.
he's a major part of the
The
world.
fixture.
And Duck, Big Duck.
Big Duck. Yeah.
But he put on a parade. You know, they had their parades, and it was called Good Morning. The theme was Good Morning, Good Evening, Good Night.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How long did that last? Just one time?
Yeah, you know how there's themes.
Yeah.
But I thought that was just so clever.
Yeah. Very
Because it's such a part of our lives, you know.
in the framework of sustainability, cultural sustainability.
The world is so upside down. The people will keep it, you know, whether they have to keep it to themselves more. People have always embraced, you know, yeah, you know, come, you know, join us. But it's gotten, I always quote, I've been quoting this, you know, the reggae tune, Jimmy Cliff. The world is spinning around. I say the world is upside down. That song is just so meaningful. Okay. But I mean, it will be in the families. I mean, the families are what's kept the music together too, and the food, you know, because it comes down from one to the other. So the families will sustain it, but it's threatened because people can't afford to live. You don't want me to get into politics too much here, but yeah, I mean, if you have to move to get a job in order to get something you can rent, that tears people apart. So it's the families, really.
But it is real.
Yeah. Music, families, and fun.
Music, family, and fun.
laughter, joke.
Is that the tradition?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what we like to do, dance. That's what we like to do. The music keeps flowing and then kind of back and forth. And, the young people go away and then they can move back. There's so many people that, or choose to stay here and contribute. And the teachers here, the music teachers, they're not just academics, they're usually professional musicians. So that keeps things tight in the community and the musical family. That aspect is really strong. This has held it together that way.
How do you move forward when, musicians still need decent pay?
There's a lot of money coming in. It's just going, a lot of like the hotels, their money isn't going to New Orleans, it's going, this and that for the doorman and the maids and, but it's going back to their corporate office. I mean, I really feel like they need to share the wealth. They should have more free live. They should, sponsor more free live music, more sponsorship, more opportunity. Gary Esselin, he was the owner of Gambit. He understood passion. So he invested in me in that way. And I'll forever be grateful to him for that, the late Gary Esselin. But, there's some of that is needed too, invest in people. If you really, if you've got money, and they're just killing you, they're so good, invest in them, help them out, see how they're doing on rent.
What were some of the articles that you put your star on?
Oh, well, my baby, I'll call him my
Okay,
baby, my star. I did this series for New Orleans Magazine for 20 years. It was called the New Orleans Jazz All-Stars. And every year I did 6 traditional musicians, traditional jazz, and 6 modern jazz musicians with beautiful photographs. I interviewed everyone, a lot of biographical stuff. And that was 12 for 20 years. So that was, and then I insisted that every year we list the names that were from the year before. So that was a really endeavor of love. And there's a lot of people mentioned in there that changed New Orleans. The first cover was Danny Barker, of course. I'd like to do the new New Orleans Jazz All-Stars. I would like to do that. You must know that journalism is, people are reading online and aren't reading in depth, perhaps,
right.
Shorter attention span.
But you're your own brand then. It sounds like you were running your own agency.
No, this was New Orleans Magazine.
Oh, but you were head of the department.
No, I was just a freelance. I've always been freelance.
Oh my God! But did you create this series?
Yeah, I created it.
You created a brand that was basically underwritten by a magazine, a journal.
Well, it was once a year.
Once a year. Okay, so you did a feature.
For 20 years, yeah.
Ah, okay. So you've always worked independently, as you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been
How was that creative spark come from, to know that you can sell your services in that kind of entrepreneurial package?
You plug.
Okay. Plug away. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm inspired by that.
I was friends with the editor, Errol Board, at the time. He had worked for Gambit.
Okay. Yeah.
And I gave him this idea.
Yeah. So you are among the who's who of who then, in terms of.
Of who? That's the question of the who's and who.
Well, do you?
No, I'm a respected journalist, and I love the music, and everybody knows that
Yeah.
because they see me out there. You know,
Right.
it's not like I'm just in an office listening to records
Yeah.
and listening. I'm at the clubs. Yeah.
Yeah. And are you still being regarded and asked to bring your intellectual property in to write about these
I
events?
mean, journalism is yeah. I mean, Jazz Times,
Yeah.
one of the great
Yeah.
magazines of all. I mean, I got that when it was still put out in print when I lived in Wolf Creek, Oregon. So I mean, I was
So
into
you're suffering from distribution.
well.
If there was a
I mean,
suffering part.
you probably heard that offbeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, that
Yeah.
was a major player for me for the last few years.
Yeah.
And certainly for record reviews,
Right.
because nobody's really doing regular record reviews.
Right. Now we have Spotify and some other
But I
stuff.
mean,
Yeah.
the people are still putting out records. I get calls. Oh, Geraldine, I want to send you. I want you to write about my record. It's like, where?
Yeah. Show me the money.
No, where can I? No, not show me the money.
Uh,
I don't have any place to write it.
to write it. Ah.
Yeah. Yeah, because Offbeat, that was doing
You need the
more record
platform.
reviews.
You need the platform to promote. In other words, people need marketing. You're a component of a marketing machine. You have no place to take your skill set and so it could get broadcast.
Yeah.
You have
But I'm not in marketing. I'm in journalism.
journalism. I got
Yeah.
that right, but you need the marketing
There
arm.
is a difference.
They need the marketing
if
arm. Yeah.
If I wrote on a platform like, I mean,
Yeah.
I would have to put I have been paid for
Yeah.
like the artist thing.
Yeah.
Conflict of interest.
How do you want to help New Orleans musicians going forward?
They have to do it.
They have to do it.
They have to do it. I'll be there rooting, writing, as much as I can. And they do it for the passion a lot too. Because if they were in it for the money, they, probably wouldn't be here.
If you wanted to become a writer, what do you suggest? I mean, how do you become the next Geraldine? Is there a school of Geraldine Wyckoff?
No. Love the music. That's
Love the
all.
music.
Just love
Okay.
the music. Yeah.
And that's where it comes from with you, is loving the music.
Absolutely. That's, I did one interview for Jazz and Heritage Archives, I think, and she kept wanting to talk more about writing. I said, no, I want to talk about the music. What the music does, the power of it, makes you laugh and cry and dance and, excitement. I mean, last night Ricardo Pascal was just wailing on sax, and it was just so much fun. And then you are a part of their communication, and you're a part of the room vibration.
Yeah. You write because of the music. You don't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't. The music is not because you write.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why people say, "Oh, why don't you write a book?" I go, well.
Yeah, right. No, I get it. Yeah, because that's your brand. That's being, I knew nothing about you, but Geraldine, boom, she writes for this, she writes for that, but I would have never known that it's the music.
People don't try to talk to me when I'm listening to music.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm forewarned.
Ask me. I mean, a little, but don't try to talk to me.
Yeah.
I always sit in the front row of the jazz tent.
Interesting. So musicians should pay attention to you then.
They do. They know.
Yeah.
We know. We're a community. We
Okay.
know. I'm part of that community.
Okay.
I'm proud and glad to say,
Yeah.
I really am,
Yeah.
I don't need to prove myself anymore,
Is traditional jazz falling behind?
Well, the Preservation Hall now, talk about knowing about business and music. They're doing really well. They're
Okay.
all over the world.
Praise
They
the
got all
Jaffies, yeah.
Palm Court closed. I mean, that was a beautiful club and great musicians there, and That's a shame. So there's a pseudo traditional music that happen, where the ones you hear the same song played the same way. It's really well, I mean, yes, you go by a club and it's like, yeah, that's a hard one. I don't go out to traditional jazz a lot. I mean, I go, well, jazz fest, but I'm usually in the modern
Right,
tent.
right. The gospel jazz. You get
And I go to the cultural tent, and and I love reggae. 'Cause we
okay.
go
So,
to,
from a journalist point of view, help me understand traditional jazz.
no, you got to ask somebody else, because there's really good players,
Yeah.
and I was, well, like Danny and Michael White, and then players like that can play both. They'll move from one to the other, like Herman Riley. He can play anything. Early on, when I'd come and was listening to a good traditional jazz, and I said, "Oh, they improvise too."
Oh yeah. I read that line. Yeah. Right.
That was like, yeah. I mean, I was, yeah, bold enough to even say that.
What is traditional jazz?
I would say it was more about life, because it
Okay.
was, the houses had pianos. I mean, unlike now, people you don't have
Everybody had a piano.
everybody had a piano, and the church, because a lot of the traditional songs came out of hymns as well. And so I think that that's a big part of it. And then the music evolves. It went from that until then Louis Armstrong made it a little hotter. And so it evolves.
If anybody knows New Orleans and knows the music, you would be one of those people. You are one of those people, and you confirm that because where you came from, where you sit, and you've listened. And that's the other thing that someone said this. Yeah, you need to listen to the music. You
Yeah.
agree?
Oh yeah, that's what I say. Don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, really listen. And you can use it as background in your house while you're dusting, or but
Mm.
but when you are in the presence, yeah, really listen. Yeah, you'll hear a ton of stuff that you wouldn't if you weren't focused and enjoying, being a part of it.